Hey guys, it's me, Pamela, long time no see from memphisfoodtrotter.blogspot.com, and this is an episode of my Pamela Fear Not. We're in the middle of our social distancing here in the United States, and so I thought I would do a little video. Um, since a lot of us are scared, not knowing what's really going to happen. And so today, our episode is about making flour tortillas. If you've seen any of my other episodes, I just have a fear against dough. And I have tried making corn tortillas before. They didn't turn out really well. However, I looked at this recipe. It looked fairly easy, so we're going to attempt to do it. And so here we go.
In a large bowl, you're going to put in 2 cups of measured out flour. The recipe I was using asked for all-purpose flour. However, I wanted to use self-rising flour because it has leavening agents, which I think would be good for tortilla fluffiness. And it also usually has salt in it. That way I don't really have to add any seasoning. So I used that. And I did put in 2 tablespoons of olive oil. This is not, of course, traditional at all. You're supposed to use lard. So normally you would just kind of heat up lard until it becomes a liquid and pour that in. But I didn't have lard, so I just used olive oil. Then you're going to add in 3/4 of a cup of water. I did warm that up first because I feel like dough needs warm water, even though this recipe called for cold water, but warm water it was. Once you've got all the ingredients, then go ahead and stir it all together until everything's moistened so you have a nice ball of dough. You can see me struggling because I'm trying to hold the camera since none of my children wants to be helpful and hold my camera today. So I'm trying to do this one-handed, which is just a little bit difficult. Once you have your dough formed into a ball, then you're going to start kneading it. And you're going to do this for a good while. It's going to be about 10 minutes. So as you're doing this, make sure you have some flour on hand as well as some extra warm water so that you can add more water if it gets a little dry, or add, in my case, it was adding a little bit more flour as I was kneading, and then it would start to get too sticky. So just keep those things on hand and just knead away until it's a nice spongy little springy ball of dough. Once you're happy with the texture of your dough, then go ahead and let it rest for 10 minutes. I covered mine just to keep it clean. You don't have to. It's not like you're waiting for it to rise or anything. Once it's done after 10 minutes, then you're going to partition your dough into 8 equal portions. I did mine as 8 initially, but because they were kind of stuck together, I ended up ripping them apart, and mine came out to be 10 equal portions. Go ahead and flour a separate container where you're going to put your portions of dough into, and then keep them covered as you're working with one portion at a time. I chose to use parchment paper to roll out my dough, and I floured the parchment paper first as well as the rolling pin, and I tried to press it out as thinly as I could. However, I would highly suggest you getting a tortilla press, especially the metal kinds. That way it will stay in a circular form and it can become as thin as possible. This was definitely my error, so mine did not turn out as I had hoped. So hopefully you'll learn from my mistake and use a tortilla press. I actually have a camal, so I heated that up and I put some oil on. And as it was heating up, then I kind of just spread out the oil evenly. If you don't have one of these, then definitely use a cast iron skillet. Once it's heated, then go ahead and put one of your tortillas out. These cook pretty quickly, so definitely do not be multitasking when you're doing this. And what you're looking for is you want some bubbles to form before you flip over. I wasn't super excited about the first tortilla, so I decided for the second tortilla I would try and lower the heat to see how that would turn out. And so this is my second attempt. Once these two are done, then I put them immediately into like a towel. That way it kind of steams the tortillas and keeps them warm as well as keeps them fluffy. For the last tortillas, I did a different technique where I stretched out the dough after rolling with my hands while turning, kind of like how a pizza maker would use gravity to get the dough to spread out. So I did that as well as had the heat on low. So as you can see, there's a lot of bubbles, but they're all small bubbles this time instead of just very large bubbles. So I feel like this worked out a little bit better than my first two attempts. So I finally made all of my tortillas, and so it ended up being 9, but then I ate one, so it ended up being 10, even though I originally had cut it into 8 pieces or 8 chunks, but because they were so sticky, they just kind of clung to each other, so I just kind of yanked them apart. Clearly, they're not actually like tortillas because they're a little bit thicker. You can see that they've bubbled up, which is good, but this and it makes it fluffy, so I actually do like the fluffiness of it, but it is a little bit too thick to use as a tortilla unless you just really love thick tortillas or carbohydrates. But I think it would be good as like a flatbread, and it's like a nice little personalized size, so you can just put your sauce and then whatever your toppings are. I tasted one of them, and actually the seasoning is pretty good. So because I used a self-rising flour, it already has like salt in it and of course it's leavening agents. So the flavor is actually pretty good. And it kind of reminds me of naan. So naan is a little bit thicker and you just kind of rip it apart and eat it with, all the curries and all the sauces. So it reminds me of naan, and also oddly it reminds me of something Chinese people eat called cheongyoban, or it's kind of like an onion pancake, which actually I think I've made once, and we roll the dough and kind of snake it around and then add the onions and salt and then roll it flat. It just kind of makes it even flakier. So I might use this recipe and redesign it just a little bit to see if it'll come out like Chinese onion pancakes. So although they're not like tortillas, it is a nice vehicle for different meals. Like I said, for personal size pizza, or use it kind of like a naan. Again, it's a little bit too thick to, do like a taco, but it is nice and fluffy, and it's already seasoning, so you do not have to add anything. Maybe you want to add maybe some like garlic powder or onion powder if you want, but you really don't have to. You can maybe even just brush it with some garlic oil or garlic butter. But anyways, so although this was kind of a fail as far as tortillas, it was a pass for carbohydrates. So it was, it wasn't a horrible recipe by any means. I will link the original recipe in my description box. I did tweak it just a little bit based on some of the comments that other people have made on it. So look at that carefully. And hopefully this will, again, show you to not be so scared about trying different things that you've previously didn't want to try. You never know, you might be pleasantly surprised even if it didn't turn out exactly like you wanted. But the recipe again was about 2 cups of flour, and I did self-rising flour, so it came out, a nice decent amount as far as the quantity.
All right, thank you guys for watching. If you like these videos, please press subscribe. Again, check out my description box. I hope you guys stay safe and healthy and use this time to be with each other and to experiment with cooking your own food. All right, until next time, bye guys.